and in some cases, I think, had come out in various newspapers, but generally been ignored by the media. Now, which story in this, of your many, many stories in this particular volume, was covered by the New York Times adequately?
Sorry.
Is there any?
The New York Times partially covered the war on journalism story, but what they left out.
You think there is one in here that perhaps the Times was okay on?
Well, not okay. They covered the statistics about journalists killed and imprisoned in the line of work, but they didn't mention the Committee to Protect Journalism's efforts to actualize this UN resolution that would provide additional protections for journalists.
So it's fair to say, as I was going to say, and I think you confirm, as you see it, this is a book of stories, actually only a page or two, several pages each, a lot of stories, which were neglected by the New York Times. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Because the Times did not serve the function of informing the public adequately. Now, I regard the New York Times as indispensable. I read it every day, and I would hate to do without it. I must say I don't look forward to the day when it's all digital. And I spend too much time. It's my excuse for not writing. So it should be doing more. But I do agree. Oh, it's been indispensable. But I think I believe I was on the first board of judges for Project Censor in 1976. And if not the first, the second. I was on for a couple of years, right at the beginning. Certainly, obviously sympathetic to what they were doing, and very aware of what the public needed that wasn't generally being provided. Now, of course, they did put out the Pentagon Papers, and in fact, I've often been asked if I thought the Times would do that today, and I've generally answered just a conjecture. With documents like that, I believe yes, with a huge comprehensive list of documents like that, and indeed, with all their distancing themselves from the source, either Assange or Chelsea Manning or Snowden, they did publish a lot of stories, a tremendous lot. In fact, I think I read somewhere that every other day, on the average, for years now, they've had stories coming from the wiki. So you have to give them credit for publishing when they get the documents. I have urged people to give documents for 40 years now, on the grounds that in my own experience, your chance of getting in a major mainstream media without documents was very, very low, and with documents, very much more. The chance that it would be noticed by Congress and the chance that something would happen would make a great difference. But as the problem is, of course, and moreover, not just documents, but a lot of documents. So when a lot of people were put off entirely, even rather quite liberal people and even radical people, were put off by the massive documents that Manning and Snowden each put out, my immediate reaction was, this is essential. This is what I've been calling for 40 years. You have to have enough documents there so that the government can't just say, oh, that memo was overridden the next day. It only reflects this particular bureaucrat, low level, we don't even know his name. The policy is totally different. It has nothing to do with the White House and so forth. No, put out a drawer full of stuff. Which is, and that's not much. I'm talking there about thousands of pages. But you know, in my safe at Rand, I had a handful of 4 drawer cases. And most of those were secret, one was top secret. In the Pentagon, I had an innumerable number of top secret drawers open to me. And I have always regretted that I did not, in 1964, before the massive escalation, and when the president was asking for a blank check, for what Congress was led to believe would be just an immediate one-shot answer to the Tonkin Gulf attack, which did not happen. In fact, he was planning for a massive war. And the theme of his campaign was, no, we seek no wider war, in contrast to Senator Goldwater, who was clearly calling for a wider war. 1,000 pages at random from one of my drawers in the Pentagon would have demonstrated that that campaign slogan, which gave him the biggest landslide up till then, was a total lie. We were planning for a wider war, not quite as wide and fast as Goldwater's, but a very big war, which we actually got before the election. And I must say, it didn't even enter my head to share that with the press, for one thing, because it would have made Johnson look bad. He was in a campaign against Goldwater. I didn't want to go to, but in retrospect, Johnson wouldn't have lost the election. He wouldn't even have been impeached if I put that material out, as Senator Morse later told me I should have done. He wouldn't have been impeached against Goldwater, and with a 2/3 Democratic majority in the Senate. No, he wouldn't have gotten a landslide, for what that's worth. But he could not have escalated the war. The leaders of foreign policy in the Senate and the House at that time, the Senate in particular, Mansfield, Russell, Fulbright, were all strongly against the war and had to be lied to corral their support for the Tonkin Gulf resolution. And the idea that he could have started the bombing, which he did start in February and March of 1965, I think was out of the question. Which is to say, I had it in my power to avert that war. And not only me, but hundreds of people had the high access that I had, and thousands had enough, really, to give the lie to what the president was in that one building. I didn't tell, and nobody else did. If I had thought about it and shrank from it for my own careerist reasons, I would feel worse than I do. All right, I didn't think of it, but why didn't I? And I've spent 40 years, more than 40 now, thinking about that. And my message for 40 years has been to people who might be in that position, don't do what I did. Don't wait. If you have knowledge that the public is being lied into a hopeless, wrongful, reckless, dangerous, costly war, don't wait till the bombs are actually falling and have been falling. You're not waiting. Don't do what I did. Don't wait till you've been to Vietnam and been part of that war, as I did, or until thousands, well, tens of thousands have died and hundreds of thousands of the adversary's population, many of them civilians. But put it out now, or consider, at least, consider at whatever cost to yourself, making the kind of risk-taking that we take as normal and required and routine on the battlefield, which I had seen myself. Courage on the battlefield in Vietnam. I saw the war up very close. Routine. Remember when I was in the Marines before that, in peacetime, I almost remember the statement, I think it was from O.P. Smith, the 1st Division, who said at Tarawa, in my battalion, had been first ashore at Tarawa, that at Tarawa, uncommon courage was a common virtue. Well, uncommon courage is very common on the battlefield. But some of those same people, like Colin Powell, when they get civilian clothes on and are an official, do not take the slightest risk of their career, their clearance, their access, to avert, no matter how great the stakes may be, and in some cases they involve risks of nuclear war, very definitely. And short of that, tens, hundreds of thousands of lives, as in Iraq. No, that's another story, but a longer story than that. But 1,000 people could have confirmed the British Downing Street memo, which said that they were going toward war toward the beginning of 2002, a year before the war actually occurred. A British memo, by the way, which was not leaked until we were well into the war, too late to do anything about it. But it was leaked. It was a memo of the British of conversations with high officials in the Bush administration. No American counterpart to that has leaked.